Hello, everyone, and welcome to the One United podcast. This is Wali and we will shortly be having Paritosh as well. And I guess you all know the reason why we're here to discuss about the Manchester derby. A basic review of what we actually saw yesterday, and it was appalling. Where do we start? Uh, Before we actually go through what all happened, what all transpired yesterday, I was quite positive before the game. I'm sure a lot of Reds were actually a little positive, considering that Manchester City were going through, you could say, a slump in form according to their standards. They haven't been the Manchester City of best that we actually, recognize them to be. And Pep Guardiola, people were saying that Pep Guardiola's time is up. He doesn't have it in him anymore. And all of that was turned out to be farce yesterday because Manchester City simply humbled us 3-0, absolutely humiliated us. It could have been 4-0 if 4 or 5-0 if Haaland wouldn't have basically missed that open goal and hit the post. It could have been worse. It could have been worse. And we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Ruben Amorim. And as the thumbnail also suggests, time is definitely ticking. Definitely not in his favor because if, if you look at him, it's basically now 30 points from 31 games. 30 points from 31 games. So it's been appalling. It's been horrendous. It hasn't been the start that Ruben Amorim has, expected. Either if you actually look at how things started when he got in, we were actually quite hopeful the way he conducted his interviews at the beginning, under the Old Trafford lights, and he seemed very confident. He said that when I'll be coming in, the one thing that you can guarantee for me would be style, and then slowly we'll be basically seeing performances getting better and better. And we are getting to see the style, but now the debate has been that is the style good enough and sustainable enough for us to actually do something decent in the league? Because as of now, things look quite bleak. Things look quite bleak. It's actually quite sad. I'm just getting a message from Paritosh will be joining us in some time. So yeah, getting back to Amorim, it's been appalling, man. Where do we start? Let's see. His tactics, his strategy, and 3-4-3 की अगर हम बात करें, it's been actually very unfortunate from his end because in pre-season it seemed like we actually are getting somewhere. We actually are moving. We actually might be able to do something. We got some good performances and good results against some decent Premier League teams. One of them was, I think, Brentford. The other, I do not recall. But yes, we did show in some good performance. Basically, we did not lose in our preseason. We actually managed to win as well as we also managed to draw some games. We did not lose. But if you look at the situation now, it's come to a situation in which you have lost 4 games so far, which includes a loss against Grimsby, which loses at which sorry 3 games so far. Grimsby Town, which was the worst of the lot. Then Arsenal in the first game of the season, City, of course. We drew against Fulham, and we managed to scrape a win in the 90th minute against recently promoted Burnley. So, what does this suggest? It's been absolutely poor, man. And if we talk about some stats over here, since the time Ruben Amorim has been appointed, since match day 12 of 2024 and 2025, Ruben Amorim's first game in charge of Man United, no ever present Premier League team has performed worse than Manchester United, which is 31 points from 31 games with a minus 13 goal difference. And the teams above Manchester United are Tottenham Hotspur, West Ham United, Wolves, Fulham, Brentford, Everton, Brighton, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, and then your usual 4 suspects: City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. So I have no confidence at all as to what we're going to do going ahead because it's been a sorry state of affairs. We have some tight fixtures going ahead as well. And if we just look at the fixture list, let me just check the fixture list. So United will be facing Chelsea next at Old Trafford. Not at all confident considering that Chelsea, although they ended up drawing the last game against Brentford, but they do look like a solid team, of course, with the recent recruits as well. Chelsea, not fancying us to actually secure the 3 points at all. Brentford away from home again. That's going to be another complicated fixture. Sunderland, Manchester United versus Sunderland, that would be at Old Trafford. That is one fixture where you could say that we might end up actually securing something. But again, not too confident. And then you have Liverpool at Anfield. So yeah, it's not looking good for Amorim at all. And then you have Brighton next. Some people are even seeing that, saying that the Liverpool fixture might be his final game. And over the last few years, we have seen actually the Liverpool fixture is the one that actually determines your future as Manchester United manager. It happened with uh, Jose Mourinho. It happened shortly after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's defeat at Old Trafford 5-0. I think we lost that. So that Liverpool fixture is going to be big, and I do not see where he goes from here. And even yesterday in the press conference, post-match press conference, he seemed quite adamant, quite stubborn. He said that he's going to stick to his philosophy. He's going to stick with the system. He's not going to change that. If you want to change, if you want to change something, then you will have to change the man. Indirectly, basically, in fact, directly sending a message to INEOS that if you are not fond of what I'm actually doing over here, then you will have to get me out of here. You will have to find a new man. Now, there are some things that he has done right, things such as, banishing the likes of Garnacho, Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Onana, Anthony. I think those were the right moves. Very well done by Ruben Amorim. Did not get pressurized at all by those players or those agents, and completely isolated them, and stuck to his guns and got some very good players. Now, where he has like messed up is that the priority has been given to the centre forward region. Of course, I understand why he was trying to do that because Rasmus Højlund wasn't doing much, and the fans were quite frustrated with him as well. So he wanted a centre forward. But at the same time, if you are going to play with the system, and if you want a solid midfield pivot, then you need to sign a decent midfielder. Because at this rate, what are you suggesting? That Kobe Mainu isn't better than Manuel Ugarte, Bruno Fernandes, and Casemiro, unfortunately, and that is not true. In fact, I feel that he is the best midfielder in our team. He's one of the best young midfielders in the country at this point of time, and he is not getting get. And we saw that even yesterday. Once he got substituted in after the 16th minute, when we actually conceded the second goal, we brought in Kobe Menu, we got in Joshua Surkley. We actually started to play some decent football, some fluid football, and that is what happens when you have more players who know what to do once they have the ball in their field. And that is exactly what we saw with Kobe Mainoo. He was beating his man. He was actually placing balls. They were not undercooked. They were not overcooked. Well placed passes towards the flanks. And Xerxes at the same time was actually providing some decent support. So it has been that kind of a situation for United. So if you actually look at it, Bruno Fernandes and Ugarte, that midfield dynamic is never going to work. Ugarte in the first half, you might say he did have a decent half, breaking up play, being the midfield destroyer. But on the ball, he's a mess. You cannot expect Ugarte to actually create chances. You cannot expect him to break the lines. That is something which we can't expect. And Bruno Fernandes, if you actually play him deep, that doesn't come good either. And he needs to play in a much advanced role. And at the same time, when he did get advanced, when he was actually playing a further forward, there were situations when he was going up the field, he was spamming in balls. He was spamming the crosses in, but none of them were reaching the likes of your centre forward, Benjamin Sesko. So might as well you actually let Sesko go to Napoli as well, just like Ireland, because if he doesn't get the service, the pressure is already on him. If he doesn't get the service, in a few months' time, you're going to call on Sesko's head as well. You're going to call him a waste of money. He's just 22 years old. So if you're not giving him opportunities, if you're not giving him chances, if you're not even landing one single cross on his head, and that is one of his abilities, that is one of his strengths. He's an aerial threat. We saw that in the game against Fulham, the lead that he did. We got excited with just one lead. So if you're not able to cross the ball, then how are you expecting how your centre forward to actually do something decent? Uh, so I don't know. It's going to be tough. We talk about our wing backs. We talk about Patrick Dogu. We talk about Mazraoui. You know, Patrick Dogu. I think he is a decent player. I'm not too sure that he's decent as a wing back. As a left back, he definitely has the potential to do something really good. In terms of defensive transitions, in terms of defensive play, he is someone who can do something. But in terms of actually end product, delivering that cross on the plate of the center forward or any other attacker. That is something which I haven't seen him do since last season. And Mazraoui also moments of brilliance going forward. I think he is quite tidy, but again, the lobbing the ball to wing back to wing back. So that's been the case with Doku and Mazraoui. So, Ahmad Diallo, on the other hand, once we saw him play as on the wing, on the right wing, then we did actually get to see some creativity from his head as well. Again, Ahmad Diallo, I think he's better off if he plays further forward rather than a wing back too. So all in all, see what we're trying to say over here is Amorim. We understand that 3-4-2 is something that 3-5-2 is something that you want to stick to. But at this point of time, if nothing is working in your favor, my friend, 31 games, 31 points, then you need to change something. You need to learn. You need to adapt. The Portuguese league was a completely different league. With all due respect, the style of play, the physicality levels, the pace in that league is completely different from the Premier League. The Premier League at this point of time, I think, is at the pinnacle of world football because any team can beat any team at this point of time. Even the game against Liverpool and Burnley that you saw, Burnley, of course, they ended up losing that game, but they made it extremely difficult. And if it wasn't for that tackle by Hannibal at the end, they would have walked away with a point. So, and you saw what Burnley did against us as well. They made it very difficult again. An injury time penalty, so they could have had 2 points in two matches rather than 0 and 2. So it's of course, if it's not working in the Premier League, if it's not working in England, then you have to change something. What is it that you can change? Change your system, try something new, be a little more flexible. Don't be stubborn because if it's not working, then it's eventually leading you to one way, to one possibility, and that is the exit door. That is something that's going to happen inevitably. I do not see any way through which he's going to. Uh, I do not see any way through which he's going to basically change things. I honestly feel that it might be the end of the road in a few games. I want him to basically change for his good. Amram, yes, you could say that he had his moments against Arsenal where we did look like a good team, a team that could actually score a few. Against Burnley, he had his moments in the first half, our team. But that is something which isn't sustainable. And at the same time, see, there are a few things that I'm not a fan of. That is like if you're replacing one defender, for example, who went off yesterday, I think it was Dillit, and in place of him came Harry Maguire. Why does he always have to resort to Harry Maguire once you're training? He's not your centre forward. I understand he might be your plan B option, but do something different. Add an attacking player. You're playing five defenders, and despite those five defenders being in your team, you're still ending up conceding 2-3 goals in almost every game. 2 to 3 goals in every game. The thing is certainly not working, and that the main thing that isn't working is that our off the ball we are atrocious. Even yesterday we saw that Manchester City were bombarding our midfield. They were outnumbering our midfield on a number of occasions, and that is the reason why the control that they got in the first half transpired into goals on the other end. On the other end. So and time and again, we've seen teams actually in the post-match press conferences, the likes of or was it against Fulham and other teams, basically saying it out that they are playing with the midfield pivot. They center backs will press us high, so we just have to be a little composed and then just make the ball go forward. And as soon as the ball bypasses the defense, there'll just be two midfielders in front of you, and if you actually have more number of men in the midfield region from your team, then you will be able to dominate them. And yesterday, that is exactly what we saw. There were situations in which it was 3 against 2 and 4 against 3. Why are we always giving teams space? Why why is it that and this is something we also saw with Eric Ten Hag. It turns out to be a basketball game, and the demands of Amarin are turning out to be quite similar because the reason why he's not playing Kobe Manu is because, as per him, he needs to be a little more physical, a little bit more quicker. But Manu is a completely different kind of player. If you expect someone like a Xavi or an Iniesta to, if Guardiola would have had that similar philosophy in which you would have asked Xavi or Iniesta to be more physical, to have more pace, because you need to break up play and you need to do this and that, and you know, you do, then Barcelona wouldn't have been the Barcelona that we know of. Certain players are different, and on the ball, Menu is completely different from all the other midfielders. He's better than Bruno Fernandes. He's better than 100 times better than Ugarte. He's better than Casemiro. So why aren't you giving him chances? So the stubbornness is going to cost him his job. That is what I feel. I honestly wanted him to succeed. I seriously thought that we might be able to do something with him, considering how he ended the season. Last season, he had said that the good days are coming. He promised us that. In the preseason friendlies, we did see some good football, some positive football. But as soon as the Premier League arrives, just one competition we are in. That's the Premier League. And I think at this rate, if we go at this rate, then we might not even be in the Premier League next season. So I do not know what it's going to take to actually change Amarim's mind. He needs to be a little different. He needs to be a little dynamic. He is a young coach after all. You can't just stick your head to one specific tactic in which you're going to say that this is how we're going to play. This is how we are going to play. Our wing backs, three defenders, two midfielders in the pivot who are not even really good at controlling the ball. That's not how you're going to win games. If you want to succeed as a manager in the long run and want to be Europe's top dog, then you have to find ways of actually winning games at the end, because that is what matters. That is what matters. You need to be flexible when things are not working out. You need to have a fluid style of play. You need to show that your team is tenacious enough to actually possibly. Yesterday, I think our first shot on target was in the fourth, fifth minute when Cisco had shot it straight into Donnarumma, and then our next shot came in the, I think, 60th or 65th minute. So we're not causing any sorts of problem. And that being said, this hasn't been the Manchester City of old. They didn't even have to go, shift to second or third gear. They just had their moments. They took it and they won quite simply, quite easily. So it's you talk about the defensive lapses. Of course, our goalkeeper is not as good. Our defense, of course, they do have defensive lapses. But why is it that these situations are being caused more often than not at our club? Why is it that it's happening now? Some might say that we did play with four at the back when Mourinho was in charge, when we had everyone, and when we had not LVG, when we had Mourinho, when we had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when we had Ten Hag, we had four in the back, and despite that, we were not able to actually uh, do something of significance in the Premier League. That being said, if you look at our midfield in the last few years, it's never been that good. And despite that, those managers still perform better than Amorim. Yes, you might say Eric Ten Hag finished seventh or eighth, but still, he didn't finish for 14th or 15th. He might have finished last season. We never know, but he won two trophies with us. Of course, a portion of what's happening at United, the blame has to be given to him in terms of the players that he brought in. But that being said, we were never as bad. You have to say that. And at the same time, like I was saying, that you need our midfield. If we fix that midfield, see our defense now is much better than what it was a few years back. We had the likes of Chris Smalling and Phil Jones, and Eric Bailly was there, but he was almost injured in every game. Marcus Rojo was there. So, it was not a prominent defensive lineup that we had over the last few years. But now you have the likes of Lenny Euro, Matthews Delit, and you have Harry Maguire on the bench as well. You have Mazraoui. And see, I'm not a fan of Luke Shaw, so I'm not going to say his name. It's been 11 years since he's at the club, and I haven't seen anything significant from his end as well. Uh, so you have these defenders, barring Luke Shaw, of course. On his day, he can be decent, but not good enough for me. So you now have a defense that is actually better than the last few years. You have a good attack as well. The midfield area is a hole at this moment of time. You need to fix that, right? So if you play with the four defenders, and if you actually play with a Kobe Menu, and let's say Casemiro beside him, or a Kobe Menu, or let's say even a Ugarte beside him, I think that might work in favor of United. Because Bruno Fernandes playing the deep is never going to work. That creativity that we see from his end only is something that we get to see when he's further forward. Now, how does he do that? What change does he do? Or what changes it that we get to see from his end would be interesting. Whether you play him as one of the tens, whether you play him probably as a false nine, because Matheus Cunha is currently injured, and Apparently, he doesn't trust Benjamin Sesko also as much when Cunha is in, so he gets more game time. But you also have the likes of Josh Paul. So see, I'm at a point. I am at a point in which I feel that it's better that it would have been better if you would have actually spent the got the money for Bruno Fernandes, the 100 million from Saudi. Because if we actually had that money, then maybe we would have invested in a Baleba or some other midfielder. You know, Bruno Fernandes has been, you could say, a good servant for us. He has 99 goals now for United. But there's a time when you need to look forward. If he isn't adapting to your style, to your system, then it's better to actually get a much younger prospect who will be able to thrive in that system, rather than shoehorning him in that side. So yeah, it's been a little, not a little. It's been very disappointing, and it's come to a stage in which I don't even get angry. I'm not quoting Gary Neville, but this is my exact feeling right now. I do not get angry when we lose anymore. Uh, I do not have any sort of empathy. It's it's now standard. I have no reaction at all when we lose. It's like, yeah, I was expecting that. So even though I was positive before the match, but the way that we started the game, I was expecting. I was expecting in a way that we were going to lose. Of course, during the 90 minutes, you have that pinch of anger in the middle, but at the same time, it's come to that point in which you have no sorts of feeling when it comes to United. You've gone numb. We're losing games left, right, and center. Any team that comes plays against us, they figure it out as to how we need to basically bypass their defensive midfield. It's absolutely easy for them. At the same time, again, Bruno Fernandes or Ugarte, they are not disciplined enough. You look at the game against Fulham. If you're playing Bruno Fernandes as one of the midfield pivots, then of course he has defensive duties as well. You need to cover your man. Against Fulham, um, the Arsenal guy who scored, former Arsenal, what was the name? I forgot. Fulham when they scored, Bruno let his man go. It was a simple goal. Bruno did not cover him. He let his man go. He went running in and he scored an easy goal. Timid approach. So if you are actually playing him in the midfield pivot, then you expect him to understand what your role is. If he's not doing that, then he's not good enough to actually start. Put him on the bench for a few games. Maybe if someone else was better than him, he gets a little bit of a you know kick up his back, then probably he might change his approach. So Paritosh is here. Let's see. So I think there's been an issue with his net. Anyways, so as I was saying, yeah, that discipline isn't there. You need someone who is tenacious, who is there glued to his man, uh, and at the same time is good enough in breaking those lines. And some people are suggesting that Lisandro Martinez, once he gets fit, you should try him, experiment with him being in the midfielder. He can do a job, but I don't think that Amorim trusts him to do that. And him sticking and his being around Ugarte all the time is something which might cost him his position. I hope things change. He needs to change something. He needs to change something. If things are not going in your favor, then you cannot, you know, do the same thing and expect a different result every time. He's easy to figure out at this point of time. So, and you need to play to the best of your player's ability. And if you want to do that, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to be a hard team to beat. Right now, even if you're creating chances, back in our head, like talking about from a fan's perspective, we know that the opposing team will create one chance, and that one chance will lead to a goal. Once that happens, we're going to lose our minds, and that might lead to another goal. It's if you look at Arsenal right now, okay, people might be saying that they're playing boring football. It's uninspiring, not great. Doesn't We don't like Arsenal, hate watching them, etc., etc. But if you look at them, they're a completely hard team to beat. They scored one goal against us, but we couldn't score even one against them at Old Trafford. You give them set pieces, they'll be a hard team to beat. Either because they'll score that goal and then sit back, and they're defensively reliable. You look at the likes of Saliba and Gabriel in defense. You look at Declan Rice in front of them. You look at Timber beside them. We talk about the goalkeeper, David Raya. It's actually, even if you're saying that they're boring to watch, that they are getting the results at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if your pitch tilt is high, if your xG is high, if your touches in the box are the highest among lots. What matters at the end of the day is the number of goals that you score and the points table at the Premier League. And right now, it suggests that you just have 31 points from 31 games, which is unacceptable from Manchester United standards. Absolutely unacceptable. So some things need to change. you know you need to be a hard team to beat first. Teams cannot think about, even if we actually let in one goal, we can always get back against United. The thought should be that if United score a goal, it's going to be extremely hard for us to come back from this. That is something that we did have to an extent when we had the likes of Jose Mourinho. um, that is something which Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, also to an extent, you could say Mourinho was the one who accepted it. Solskjaer was decent, but I think Solskjaer's squad was also good enough to actually get him to big results. The individual brilliance that we relied on under his tenure, he was a good manager. You have to say I was his biggest critic, but in terms of managing the situation, probably not coaching, but managing the situation, managing his players, of course, under the wheels came off, was actually quite decent. And then now we have Ruben Amorim, who's struggling to actually even secure one back-to-back wins, and I do not honestly know when we're going to do that. It's going to be a hard watch. And will Ineos act? Will Ineos actually uh, back him, or will they actually pull the trigger, or will they get someone else, an Ariola or Glasner, or is it going to be someone else like a Michael Carrick? I don't know. I do not know, but they need to basically imply to Amorim that this is a season which we cannot write off after just 4 games. This shouldn't be happening at Manchester United. We have just one competition to focus on. One, that's League, that's Premier League. So they need to decide whether they're going to back him, or if they think that in order to salvage this season, because I've already seen a large sample size of what he has done, are they going to actually go for someone else? Because now they have got Amorim his players. They've got rid of some players as well. A lot of players, not some, a lot of players. And now, he doesn't have an excuse. All eyes are currently on him. Yes, I do think that Ineos missed a trick by not giving him a midfielder. That was absolutely essential. More than a striker, I think a midfielder was essential. But that being said, he still has some quality players up front, and he needs to get at least the basic results against teams such as Grimsby or Burnley, or of course he got that when he scraped with at the end, and Fulham, etc. Right now, you do not know when our next win is going to be. So, sorry, state of affairs. So yeah, it's going to be interesting whether they back him or whether they actually go for someone else. They have this in mind. Of course, they should have this in mind that top six Europe is something that is a priority. We have to be in Europe next season, and we have to salvage it. Like I said, it's just 4 games. But if you actually give them more time and the situation it worsens even more, then you might even lose that momentum going ahead. Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting whether they stick with him, whether they sack him. I do not know where I stand right now. Logic says that it's the writing is on the wall. He's heading towards one direction. My mind and my heart, sorry, says that I wanted this guy to work. It doesn't seem like it's going to work because, like I said, after the match yesterday, is what he said that I'm not going to change things. This is how it's going to be. So that means that Kobe Mano is not going to get to start. We're going to see more Bruno and Mugate. We're going to see the same formation, and we might, you know, we will struggle. We will struggle, which is basically Amnon's favorite word. So yeah, that's about it. 3-0. City, like I said, didn't even have to move to second gear. They weren't at their best, but despite that, they had their moments and they secured the win quite comfortably. Next week is going to be a really good game between City and Arsenal. It's going to be tight. Um, Hard to predict who's going to win, but it is going to be tight. So I'm not going to predict that game right now. But United have their game against Chelsea next week, another difficult fixture, and then after that, 2 games after that, we will have Liverpool. So it's not looking good for Ruben Amorim and Manchester United. Anyways, we'll see what's gonna happen. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope that we actually string some momentum. It's just a matter of winning back-to-back games. Once you actually do that, you will have the confidence to actually have that same energy in the third game, the fourth game, and the fifth game. And it might turn out to be positive, but let's see what happens. It was nice talking to you all. I hope Manchester United turn things around soon enough because as of now it's looking bleak. Even our rivals are not mocking us as much because they've had enough of us, and that's the worst. That's the worst bit. So it's going to be interesting as to what happens in the next few weeks. United have to bounce back, otherwise, Ruben Amorim next three four fixtures, I think he's done. Let's see what happens. It was nice talking to you all. Until then, do take very good care of yourselves. This is Wali signing off. Take care, guys.